Imagine having the entire world at your very feet, with millions of loyal fans chanting your name and every high-definition camera lens tracking your every single move. You're a star, an icon, a living legend who seems to have it all. But then, you catch a fleeting glimpse of yourself in the mirror, and all you see are the flaws that a hypercritical society told you were there from the very beginning. It's a heavy, unsettling thought, isn't it? Why are our absolute favorite icons risking everything? Their health, their storied careers, and even their very lives, all for the sake of a perfect look that often doesn't even exist in reality. We see them gliding across the red carpet, glowing under the intense heat of the flashing lights. But we rarely see the painful scars hidden beneath those designer gowns, or the silent, grueling battles they fight in recovery rooms. It's honestly wild when you sit down and really think about it. You see these famous faces every single day on your social media feeds, but have you ever stopped to wonder what they actually sacrificed to get that specific nose shape or that impossibly perfect silhouette? The pressure of being black in Hollywood is a whole different beast entirely. It's a unique, almost suffocating set of expectations that has been hovering over the entertainment industry for decades. There's this unreachable beauty standard that feels like it's constantly moving its own goalposts, especially for people of color. It's not just about being pretty or talented anymore. It's about fitting into a very specific, often Eurocentric or hyper-curated mold that feels completely impossible to maintain through natural means. We are talking about a culture that scrutinizes every single curve, every shade of skin, and every facial feature with a microscopic level of judgment. For many black stars, the surgical knife unfortunately becomes a tool for professional survival in a business that often discards you the moment you start to look aged or ordinary. But at what cost does this survival come? We're seeing a devastating trend where the pursuit of physical perfection turns into a literal fight for life. It's deeply heartbreaking because these are the very people who defined our culture, our music, and our collective sense of style. Yet they felt they weren't enough just as they were. Today we are taking a deep dive into a topic that's as glamorous as it is terrifyingly real. We're looking at 14 black celebrities whose cosmetic surgery stories didn't just make the front page tabloids, they ended in absolute gut-wrenching tragedy. Some of these names will definitely catch you off guard, while others might make you want to reach out and give them a hug through the screen. We're talking about vibrant lives cut short by ambition, legendary careers derailed by botched procedures, and the psychological toll of waking up to a reflection that you simply do not recognize anymore. From the glitz and glamour of the Grammy stage to the cold, sterile reality of a hospital bed, these stories serve as a powerful and necessary reminder of the dangers lurking behind the beauty industry's closed doors. We will explore the hidden risks that many stars try to keep secret and the discount clinics that cater to the elite behind closed doors. Some stories are cautionary tales, while others are absolute heartbreaks that left a permanent hole in the industry. It forces all of us to sit back and ask a really tough, uncomfortable question. Is the red carpet truly worth your life? Is a snatched waist or a completely restructured face worth the high risk of never coming home to your loved ones? It's a massive gamble that more and more people are taking every single day, even when they've seen the devastating outcomes firsthand. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from, because this conversation is just getting started and we want to hear your unique thoughts on this heavy reality. We really need to talk about whether the industry's silence is part of the problem. As we begin to peel back the layers of these 14 stories, we have to start with the one that arguably changed the way the entire world looks at celebrity transformations. This wasn't just a minor tweak here or a little bit of filler there. This was a total, shocking metamorphosis of a legendary figure whose every single move was tracked by the entire planet. When he finally stepped out into the light, the world didn't just gasp, it stood still in confusion. People started asking questions that no one seemed to have the answers to, and the mystery surrounding his changing face became a global obsession that eventually overshadowed even his record-breaking music. The pressure he felt must have been astronomical, but the results were both fascinating and deeply tragic in ways no one expected. Was it a quest for a specific look, or was he trying to erase a past he no longer wanted to see in the mirror? The mystery remains one of the most talked about tragedies in the history of pop culture, and it's only the beginning of our list. You won't believe how deep this goes, but wait, because there is so much more to uncover. When we talk about the pioneers of transformation, we have to start with the man who arguably defined the entire era of the celebrity new face. Michael Jackson wasn't just the king of pop, he was a global phenomenon whose every move was analyzed by billions. But as his music grew more complex and his fame reached astronomical heights, so did the mystery surrounding his physical appearance. Do you guys remember the Michael from the off-the-wall era? He was a handsome, vibrant young man with a wide smile and features that reflected his heritage and his family's legacy. But as the years rolled on, we watched in real time as his features began to shift and sharpen in ways that felt almost supernatural to the average observer. It wasn't just about a single nose job or a minor tweak. It was a total, decades-long metamorphosis that left the world in a state of perpetual shock. People were incredibly quick to judge, but what we often didn't see was the immense internal pain and the potentially deep-seated body dysmorphia that might have driven those constant changes. He was living under a literal magnifying glass, and every single insecurity he possessed was broadcast to the world. Can you even imagine that kind of pressure? It's enough to make anyone want to hide behind a mask, or in his case, a completely different face that looked less and less like the boy who started it all. And then we have to talk about the legendary Queen Bee herself, the one and only Lil' Kim. When she first exploded onto the scene, she was the absolute blueprint for Brooklyn cool, gorgeous, fierce, and naturally stunning with an energy that changed the rap game forever. But over the years, her journey through the world of cosmetic surgery became one of the most talked about and heart-wrenching stories in the history of hip-hop. Why did a woman who had the entire world in the palm of her hand feel the need to change so drastically? Lil' Kim has been incredibly vulnerable about this, citing a crushing lack of self-esteem and the toxic influence of the men in her life who constantly told her she wasn't pretty enough. It's absolutely devastating to think that even a superstar of her caliber could feel so small and inadequate. Her transformation wasn't just a fashion choice, it was a desperate survival mechanism in an industry that often celebrates a very specific, often lighter-skinned version of beauty. You see, this is where the heavy shadow of colorism enters the chat, and it's a conversation we really need to confront. The context here is absolutely crucial because these celebrities aren't making these life-altering choices in a vacuum. Hollywood has a long, dark history of favoring Eurocentric features, and for black stars, that pressure is often doubled. They are told to be marketable, which in the boardrooms of major studios often translates to looking less black. This systemic bias pushes many of our favorite icons toward the scalpel, seeking features, thinner noses, lighter skin, different textures that fit a mold designed by people who don't look like them. It's a vicious cycle of trying to reach an ideal that is rooted in a history that never prioritized them. Before the fame and the dozens of procedures, these were just incredibly talented individuals with big dreams and natural beauty. They were pioneers of a culture that the rest of the world wanted to copy, yet they felt they had to literally carve themselves into something else just to stay relevant or feel worthy of the love they were receiving from the public. The shift in public perception is always the most jarring part of these stories. There's usually a specific moment, maybe a red carpet appearance or a new music video, where the public suddenly realizes that things have gone way too far. One day it's a minor change, and the next, the star is walking out looking completely unrecognizable. The memes start, the "what happened to her face?" headlines dominate, and the very fans who claim to love them often become their harshest critics. It's a cruel irony that the more these stars try to please the public, the more the public turns on them when the results aren't perfect. But hold on, because as shocking as these physical changes were, they were often just the tip of a much deeper, much more dangerous iceberg. While some stars lived to deal with the public's judgment, others weren't so lucky. We are now moving from the stories of transformation into the accounts of absolute tragedy, where the quest for beauty didn't just change a reflection, it ended a life. These next cases are where the glamour completely fades away, and we are left with the cold, hard reality of what happens when the surgery room becomes a place of no return. You aren't going to believe how quickly some of these situations turned fatal, especially when these stars were at the peak of their careers and had everything to live for. When we talk about the ultimate price paid for the pursuit of perfection, no name resonates with more collective heartbreak in the black community than Donda West. Can you guys even wrap your heads around the magnitude of that loss? She wasn't just a mother, she was the heartbeat behind Kanye West's genius, his biggest champion, and a respected educator in her own right. In 2007, the news of her passing sent shockwaves through the entire music industry that are still felt today. Imagine the scene, a woman at the height of her pride, watching her son dominate the world, deciding to undergo what many consider standard cosmetic procedures. We're talking about a tummy tuck and a breast reduction, things that are marketed as simple, everyday fixes in the Hollywood bubble. But what many people don't realize is that even the most routine surgery carries a weight that can become unbearable when high risk factors are involved. Donda was dealing with pre-existing health conditions, and the complications that arose after her 5.5-hour surgery were nothing short of a nightmare. It wasn't just a medical failure, it was a cultural trauma that left us all questioning everything. The details that emerged were truly gut-wrenching, involving specific issues with post-operative care and the physical toll those combined procedures took on her heart. It makes you wonder, was the risk ever truly explained to her in a way that captured the life and death stakes? The fallout from Donda's death actually led to new laws in California, but the tragedy didn't stop there. It opened up a massive conversation about the medical missteps that happen when the glitz of celebrity meets the cold reality of the operating table. Why are so many stars being cleared for these high-risk scenarios when the red flags are waving right in front of the medical staff? It's often about the yes men culture that surrounds the elite. Sometimes doctors are so eager to have a high-profile client that they might overlook the very warnings that would stop them from treating anyone else. And you won't believe the whispers that circulate in those exclusive circles about discount doctors. Even when you have all the money in the world, there's this strange, dangerous allure to these secret clinics that promise faster results with less red tape. These are the places where the rules get bent, and unfortunately, lives get broken. But wait, because this isn't just a story from the past. Just recently, the world was absolutely devastated by the passing of Ms. Jackie O, the vibrant and beautiful star from Wild 'N Out. This one hit different because we saw her life unfolding in real time on social media. She was a young, devoted mother of 3, and her decision to undergo a mommy makeover in Miami ended in a tragedy that no one saw coming. The term mommy makeover sounds so innocent, right? Like a spa day for tired moms. But in reality, it's a heavy combination of surgeries, usually a tummy tuck, breast augmentation, and liposuction, all performed at once. For Jackie O, what was supposed to be a celebratory transformation turned into a final goodbye. The heartbreak for her partner, DC Young Fly, and their 3 little ones is something you can't even put into words. It brings up that burning question again. Why is the pressure to snap back after pregnancy so intense that these gorgeous women feel they have to risk everything? There are so many rumors floating around about the clinics catering to these high-profile clients behind closed doors. Some say these doctors offer celebrity packages that bypass the standard waiting periods or rigorous health checks. It's a terrifying thought that the very wealth and fame these stars work so hard for might actually make them more vulnerable to surgeons who prioritize a paycheck over a pulse. When you're an icon, you're used to getting what you want, but the human body doesn't care about your fame. It has its own limits, and when those limits are pushed in secret, unregulated spaces, the results are almost always catastrophic. You've got to ask yourselves, is the red carpet really worth your life? We are seeing a pattern here that is impossible to ignore. From Donda West to Jackie O, the common thread is perfection's high cost. While we just talked about those who tragically lost their lives, there is another group of stars living through a different kind of horror, a slow motion disaster that plays out in front of the cameras every single day. Have you guys noticed how the perfect silhouette suddenly became a mandatory requirement for every black woman in the entertainment industry? We absolutely have to talk about the BBL epidemic because it has truly reached a terrifying boiling point, and no one's story is more harrowing or visually shocking than that of R&B powerhouse K. Michelle. For years, she was the literal poster child for that ultra-curvy, hourglass look that dominated every social media explore page. But what she didn't tell us initially was that her enhancements weren't even medical grade or performed in a hospital. She went to someone who wasn't a licensed surgeon and had illegal silicone injections pumped directly into her body. Can you even imagine the paralyzing fear of realizing that the very thing you bought to feel beautiful was actually a literal poison circulating through your veins? K. Michelle eventually broke her silence in a way that was brave and gut-wrenching, and the details she shared were enough to make your skin crawl. She described how the silicone started to migrate down her legs, causing her intense, localized pain that made it nearly impossible to even stand up, let alone perform on stage for her fans. It wasn't just a cosmetic failure, it was a total health collapse. She's had to undergo over a dozen corrective surgeries just to try and cut the foreign substances out of her living tissue. Every single time she went back under the knife to fix the damage, she was essentially risking her life all over again. It's a brutal, exhausting cycle of trying to return to a natural state that her body might never fully recover from. She's been incredibly vocal about the ticking time bomb inside her, warning young girls everywhere that the Instagram body is not worth the lifetime of physical agony she's endured. But the pressure to change your identity doesn't stop at the waistline. Sometimes it goes straight to the eyes, which is arguably even more dangerous. You guys surely remember when Tamika Tiny Harris showed up on the scene with those bright ice gray eyes. The internet practically melted down in confusion. Tiny, who we've loved since her legendary Xscape days and followed through her life with TIEA, decided to fly all the way to Africa for a permanent eye color change surgery. This specific procedure is so controversial and risky that it's not even FDA approved for cosmetic use inside the United States. They essentially insert a thin silicone implant directly over your natural iris. The risks are enough to keep you up at night. We're talking about permanent vision loss, extreme glaucoma, and early cataracts. Medical experts were coming out of the woodwork to warn the public that this was a recipe for total blindness. When Tiny finally spoke about her decision, she admitted she just wanted a change, but the public backlash was swift and unforgiving. People were asking, why would you risk your sight just for a different eye color? It highlights this desperate, almost frantic need to stand out in a world where everyone is constantly looking for the next trend to jump on, even if it means sacrificing your senses. Where does all this crushing pressure even come from? Well, you can't look at this era of transformation without looking at the rise of reality TV culture. Shows like Love and Hip Hop and Wild 'N Out created this visual standard that felt completely mandatory for any woman who wanted to stay relevant. If you were going to be on that high definition screen, you felt like you had to have the biggest hair, the smallest waist, and the most dramatic features possible. The Instagram ready body became the entry fee for fame. These women were being judged frame by frame, and the toxicity of the comment sections only fueled the fire. It's one thing to feel insecure in the privacy of your bedroom, but it's another thing entirely to have millions of people dissecting your before and after photos on a Tuesday night. We've seen these icons break down in tears during Raw interviews, like K. Michelle on The Real, crying because she just wanted her old natural self back. They were sold a sparkling dream of perfection, but they woke up in a medical nightmare. They trade their long-term health for a look that the public eventually gets bored with anyway. It's a tragic trade-off that leaves these stars fighting just to feel normal again. You really have to wonder, when the cameras finally stop rolling and the filters are off, how do they deal with the reflection in the mirror? The evidence of their deep regret is all over the internet, and the stories only get more complicated as the public starts to weigh in with their own opinions. But wait until you see how the fans and the internet reacted to these transformations, because that's when things got really ugly. The internet can be an incredibly cold and unforgiving place, and for these stars, the comment section is often the front line of their deepest trauma. You've seen it yourselves. The second a celebrity debuts a new look that seems a bit off or just too much, the digital floodgates open instantly. It is a jarring and often heartbreaking mix of prayers for her and the most vicious, "Why did she do that?" trolls you could ever imagine. Some fans are genuinely devastated, realizing the immense pain and crushing insecurity that must have led their favorite icon to such an extreme choice in the first place. Meanwhile, others use the opportunity to launch a relentless barrage of insults, turning a person's private health struggle into a global spectacle of judgment and mockery. This public outcry doesn't just stay on the gossip blogs, it migrates to every single platform, making it impossible for these women to escape the noise of their own transformation. And we absolutely have to talk about the toxicity of those before and after memes, because they are truly devastating to the soul. We live in a world where your face from 10 years ago is constantly being dragged out of the archives and compared to your face today, usually with the most unflattering lighting and angles possible. For Black female celebrities, this comparison culture is particularly poisonous. It's not just about aging or weight gain, it's about the perceived erasure of of their original beautiful features. When a meme goes viral mocking a star's new nose or her swollen lips, it's more than just a joke. It is a direct hit to her mental health and self-esteem. Imagine being in the middle of a painful recovery, dealing with physical complications, and the terrifying fear of a botched result, and then scrolling through your feed only to see thousands of people laughing at your vulnerability. These memes strip away the humanity of these women, turning them into cautionary caricatures instead of real people who are suffering in silence. It creates a psychological weight that is almost impossible to carry, often leading to a fix-it cycle where they get even more procedures to try and correct what the public is currently criticizing. But amidst all that digital noise and cruelty, a powerful support system usually begins to emerge from within the community. When things truly hit the fan and the medical reality becomes public, you see the true fans, the ones who have been there since the first platinum album or the first breakout movie role, rallying to drown out the hate. They start hashtags, they leave words of genuine encouragement, and they hold space for these women to be imperfect and human. This rally of support is often the only thing that gives stars like K. Michelle or even Angela White the strength to eventually come forward and tell their raw truth. It's a beautiful thing to see the community protect its own, but it doesn't totally erase the fierce debate that rages on in the background. People are constantly asking the same burning question: is this body positivity or is it self-destruction? On one hand, some argue that these women are just exercising their right to do whatever they want with their own bodies to feel confident. On the other hand, many critics believe that the extreme nature of these surgeries is a form of self-harm fueled by a systemic industry that refuses to value black beauty in its natural, unaltered form. Is it really empowerment if you feel like you have to cut yourself open just to be accepted on the red carpet? That's the question that keeps the internet divided and the conversations heated. We've all seen those viral moments where stars have finally sat down for raw, unfiltered interviews, essentially becoming human warning signs for the next generation. They look directly into the camera with tears in their eyes and tell their millions of followers, "Please, I'm begging you, do not do what I did." These moments are absolutely chilling because they break the glittering illusion of the perfect Hollywood life. When you hear a star describe the physical smell of their own tissue decaying or the paralyzing fear of never seeing their children grow up because of a mommy makeover gone wrong, the debate shifts from being about looks to being about survival. These viral warnings are slowly starting to change the way young girls look at these procedures. They aren't just seeing the snatched waist or the high cheekbones anymore. They're starting to see the hidden scars and the life-altering consequences that come with the price of admission. This massive wave of honesty is making everyone wonder if we are finally witnessing the beginning of the end of the plastic surgery era in Hollywood. Is the BBL era finally over? Are we collectively tired of the copy-paste faces that have dominated our screens for the last decade? It feels like there is a collective exhale happening as more celebrities choose to dissolve their fillers and embrace their original selves. But don't be fooled. The pressure hasn't disappeared. It has just changed its shape. Even as the natural movement gains momentum, there is still a massive, well-oiled machine behind the scenes, pushing these unreachable standards onto anyone with a dream. The suspense is building as we wait to see if the industry will actually change its ways, or if it will simply find a new, equally dangerous trend to push. Are we moving toward a healthier future, or are we just in a temporary lull before the next storm hits? To understand the full tragedy, we have to look deeper into the shadows where the legal battles and the black market doctors reside. You won't believe the secrets that come out when the NDAs finally start to crack. When the spotlight finally dims, the investigation into these tragic outcomes leads us into a dark, underground world. We are talking about the notorious black market fillers and the practitioners operating in the shadows long after their licenses were revoked. It's absolutely terrifying to think that someone would trust their life to a doctor hiding from the law. But for some stars, the promise of a quick private fix is a siren song they can't resist. Investigators have uncovered secret clinics that look like medical offices but are actually death traps where industrial-grade silicone is pumped into bodies. These delicensed doctors move from city to city, leaving a trail of broken hearts. It's a criminal one preying on fame. The legal fallout from these botched procedures is a whole other level of drama that rarely makes the front page headlines. When a tragedy happens, like the devastating passing of Ms. Jackie O or the physical suffering of icons like K. Michelle, the lawsuits start flying flying immediately. Families are left to pick up the pieces and fight for justice in a system that often favors the wealthy and the well-connected clinics. We've seen multi-million-dollar settlements and intense courtroom battles where the families of fallen stars try to hold these reckless clinics accountable. But let's be real, no amount of money can ever truly bring back a mother, a daughter, or a friend who was lost to a vanity procedure. These settlements often come with a massive catch. They are usually designed to keep the dirty details quiet and out of the public eye forever through strict confidentiality agreements. This brings us to the expert opinions that are finally coming to light, and they are truly eye-opening. There are specific high-stakes risks facing black patients that many mainstream surgeons ignore or aren't even trained to handle. Top surgeons in the field have been sounding the alarm about keloid scarring, those thick, raised, and painful scars that are much more common in people with melanated skin. If a surgeon doesn't understand the unique physiology of black patients, a simple cosmetic incision can turn into a lifelong struggle with disfigurement. And then there's the terrifying issue of anesthesia. Complications during the numbing process are a leading cause of death, and medical research shows that genetic factors can influence how our bodies metabolize these powerful drugs. If the medical team isn't specifically trained for black bodies, the operating room becomes a gamble with life and death. So, why haven't we heard more about this? The answer lies in the hidden evidence and the ironclad non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs, that these celebrities are often forced to sign before they even step foot in the clinic. It's a culture of silence that protects the industry while leaving the individual to suffer through the aftermath alone. These NDAs keep the most horrific details of botched surgeries under wraps for years, preventing other potential victims from hearing the truth. If a star comes forward, they risk losing everything: their contracts, their reputation, and their legal standing. It's a high-stakes game of hush money that keeps the plastic surgery machine running at full speed, and we absolutely cannot ignore the industry's complicit silence in all of this. Why do record labels and major movie studios continue to push for these unreachable looks while completely ignoring the obvious health risks? They want the snatched waist and that specific silhouette because that's what sells albums in today's hyper-visual market. There is an unwritten, brutal rule in the industry. You have to look a certain way to stay relevant, or you'll be replaced by someone who will do whatever it takes. The pressure is immense, and for many black stars, it feels like a forced choice between their health and their livelihood in a business that views them as disposable products. The studios get the profit, the fans get the image, but the celebrity is the one left with the permanent physical and emotional scars. It's a cycle of exploitation that is finally starting to crack wide open as more victims find their voices and speak out. But wait, because the shift toward a new era is already happening as we speak, and the icons themselves are leading the way. But guys, there's a glimmer of hope on the horizon, and it's coming from the most unexpected places. We are currently witnessing what many are calling the Great Reversal, a massive shift back toward the natural beauty that was always there. Leading this charge is none other than Angela White, the woman the world once knew exclusively as Black China. For years, she was the poster child for the extreme surgical look, the massive curves and sharp fillers. But then, something clicked deep inside her spirit. She decided she was done being a caricature of herself and a prisoner to the industry's aesthetic demands. Angela went on a public journey that left us all speechless, documenting every step of the removal of her silicone injections and the dissolving of her facial fillers. Watching her transition back into her original self has been nothing short of revolutionary for the entire culture. She spoke openly about returning to her roots, both spiritually and physically, and described the literal weight she felt lifted off her shoulders once she stopped trying to maintain a body that simply wasn't hers. It's a powerful, defiant statement in an industry that usually tells you to add more and never take away. This move by Angela White has truly opened the floodgates. Now, everyone in the comments sections and on the blogs is looking around and wondering, who will be the next star to come clean? We see the rumors swirling every single day about certain icons who suddenly look a little more human and recognizable in their latest paparazzi shots. There's a growing list of celebrities who are quietly scaling back on the needles and the scalpels, finally realizing that the frozen look just isn't the vibe anymore for the next generation. But let's be real, coming clean about these things takes an incredible amount of personal courage. Imagine admitting to millions of global followers that you were deeply unhappy with the very things you once promoted as your brand. It's messy, it's vulnerable, and it's exactly what the culture needs right now to heal. We're all speculating on which reality TV queens or hip-hop legends will finally admit that their natural glow-up was actually a series of high-stakes medical procedures that they now deeply regret. The lesson here is profound and honestly a bit heartbreaking when we look back at the stories of Michael Jackson, Lil' Kim, and K. Michelle. We see the staggering emotional toll of chasing an image that doesn't actually exist in nature. The physical cost is one thing, the scars, the pain, and the terrifying infections, but the mental exhaustion of never feeling enough is a weight no human being should have to carry. These stars spent millions of dollars trying to buy a version of confidence that can only truly come from within your own soul. They were running a race where the finish line kept moving, pushed further back by every new social media filter or trending aesthetic. It's a cautionary tale for all of us. If these millionaires with the best doctors on speed dial can't find peace through surgery, what chance do the rest of us have? Their struggle proves that no amount of physical alteration can fix a wound that is purely internal. So, I have to ask you guys. Do you think Hollywood will ever truly stop being obsessed with plastic surgery? Or are we just entering a new phase where the natural look becomes just another expensive trend to achieve through different, more subtle procedures? It's a tough question, but your voice matters in this cultural conversation. The more we celebrate authenticity and realness, the less power these unreachable standards have over our daily lives. We have to change the way we consume fame and stop demanding perfection from people who are just as human and flawed as we are. Are you truly ready for the return of the real? As we wrap up this deep dive, we have to take a moment of silence to pay tribute to the lives that were cut far too short. We remember the legendary Donda West, whose vibrant spirit and legacy continue to influence the world through Kanye West. Even years after that tragic medical complication, we remember Ms. Jackie O, a bright young talent and mother whose loss serves as a devastating reminder that no procedure is ever routine when your life is on the line. These aren't just names on a list, they were mothers, daughters, and icons who deserve to grow old. Their stories are difficult to hear, but by sharing them, we honor their memory and perhaps save someone else from making the same fatal mistake. Thank you for staying with us through this journey. It has been an emotional ride, but a necessary one for us to have. Stay safe, stay beautiful in your own unique way, and I'll see you in the next deep